Hey, what's up? Andrew Kramer here, and welcome to another very exciting tutorial. What we're going to be doing is building a basic score using Sony Vegas Video, which is just a basic audio video editing application. You can also use Adobe Premiere and even Adobe After Effects or any other audio video application. We're also going to be going over the techniques in Premiere as well as After Effects, but everything that we're going to be learning translates pretty easily to any other program. We're just going to be doing cutting and fading between layers, transitions, that kind of thing. So hopefully you'll be able to get a pretty good idea on how this works and you can start creating some great music. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a look at this example and just kind of explain, the idea behind ProScore. So here's one of the template files and how it sounds. Okay, so basically what we've done is taken different audio tracks and different effects and different sounds and mixed them up so that we create a more impactful promo score. So here we have, if I solo it, some drums and some horns. This track is a very light melody. And down here we have some hard-hitting bass drums. And those help to really accentuate, those hits and, make it sound cool. And then there's other things like sound effects. Also, using some of our other templates, you can see there's all sorts of options and ways these files can be used. So what we're going to go ahead and do is start creating our own score from scratch. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new project. And here is what we're going to be doing. First, we do want to use Adobe Bridge to look through our files and find what we want to find. So maybe I'll start with some epic music, and let's look in the percussion folder. And maybe we'll take a look at some of these dramatic percussion tracks. Here I can skip through. Okay, so I'm going to take this dramatic percussion number 5 and create a new layer by just dragging it in there. And this also works the same if you're using Adobe Premiere. What you can do is just drag a track right into the project, and once it's in the project, you can drop it onto an audio track. Now in Premiere, I like to just bring this up, and so I can focus just on my audio layers, and you can see there it is. Likewise, if you're using After Effects, you can drop that into the project, drag it onto a new layer, and you can hit LL, and that will show your waveform. Now, if you go to videocopilot.net and go to the blog, you can search for audio, and what that will do is bring up a post I made a while ago, and it talks about all the tips and all the tricks of using audio in After Effects. So examples are how to play it back, how to listen to it, and it's a little bit different than your other programs. You hit period on the number keypad, and that starts playing it back, and if you hit this and bring down the audio level, you can then, do fade outs and things like that. And all the audio effects are up here, and everything you need to mix layers together. And you can just sequence everything. And there's also the audio control here in order to mix the left, right, and see if you're clipping or not. Now in Premiere, works very similar, except you have a little bit more control. And we have this pen tool, which allows you to click, hold down Control actually, and click, and you can create these points that you can then edit for creating fades. Or you can cut a track with the razor blade, and then you can add a transition. And to add a transition, you hit Control Shift D, and that adds just a quick fade out. And you can extend it, and you'll hear your track fades out. So that's the basic use we're going to be using in this editing. We're just going to be cutting and fading tracks together. So in this program, you would just overlay tracks and use the pen tool or the transition to fade out between one track and another. And likewise in After Effects, you could just fade between them. So now that you have the basic idea of using Premiere and After Effects, let's go back into Vegas and focus on actually building our own score. Okay, now that we have our basic drum track here, let's go ahead back into the percussion or the bridge folder, and we'll go back out, check out a massive track, and let's just hear a few of these. All right, Mountain of Gods, that's a pretty cool track. What we can do, instead of using the massive track that's already mixed, let's go to the layered tracks and find that same track, Mountain of Gods, and bring these into our project. So I'm going to drag it out one at a time. And create 3 separate tracks. Now, it might be a good idea to name your tracks. This one is the choir, I believe. Actually, this is the drums. And this is the orchestra. And I assume this is the choir. By the way, for Vegas users, I'm just hitting X to solo the selected track. Now, to go over the tools of Vegas, we have sort of the solo button, we have the mute button, record button, some other effects that we'll get into later, but basically the way we're going to be working in Vegas is the letter S splits a clip. So when I want to make a cut, I'm just going to go to that point and hit S, and it cuts it. Then I can delete parts of it. I can then put my mouse just in the top corner, drag it over, and create a real-time fade. I can right-click on the fade. Let's see. Give it a different curve, if I want it to be slow. And I can even butt tracks up next to each other, and they automatically crossfade. So, I mean, there's really a lot of great reasons I like this program, but, I don't even know which ones to state because you'll see all the great things about it. We can bring the audio levels down. Oh, by the way, Vegas actually used to be an audio-only application, and they added video later on, but that's why it's such a good audio application. It was actually the program I used in the beginning. So anyway, we have these tracks here. I'll go ahead and extend this back out, and what we want to do maybe is bring in some sound effects because we want to give it a little bit more life. So we'll go back into Bridge and we'll go look for some music sound design. And maybe we'll go to the musical effects and we can play some of these. All right, so that was kind of weird. Let's bring that out and let's go to the Mammoth Hits and maybe just bring one of these out. You can go through them. We're just going to use what we have. The big drum is a very cool hard-hitting drum that we'll use a lot, and maybe one of these atmospheres. So You can obviously audition sounds. We're just going to kind of work with what we have. And maybe we'll take one of these tension crescendos and we'll take the mountain and high. Okay, so we'll come back over here and now we have all the audio tracks. What I can do is switch over to this tool and drag all these over. We'll get to those and we'll go back to the standard editing tool. And we're going to start it out with maybe one of these atmosphere sounds. So we'll bring our atmosphere over, and again I'll just drag these sounds over and I can organize my tracks a bit better and go back to my editing tool. So we'll go ahead and play this here and see what we have. Actually, that's our crescendo. Here is our atmosphere. So very cool. Kind of a weird sound. I'm going to bring the master volume down so you can hear me talking. And maybe just move over some of the sound effects. So it's always cool to start a track out with, a big hard sound. So maybe we'll bring one of these hits over as well. Okay, and then we'll start some of these percussions from our drums. So I can probably just move this down and then now, I'm going to actually go back. I want to find some drums that have a little bit more to them and not so low sounding. So let's go back and maybe we'll actually audition the drums first. So we'll go back into the Epic Music, percussion, and let's listen to a couple of tracks. All right, we'll take percussion number 3, drag that out, and we'll start working from it. So we start out with sort of the weird sound effect, and then we're going to get into this percussion track. So I'll hit spacebar. Now we can see here we have sort of this buildup in the atmosphere. So what I want to do is cut it right here and move this over and move this over so that it builds up a bit sooner. Okay, so right there we hear bum, 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 bum. So what I'm going to do is cut right here and delete everything afterwards. And maybe actually I'll cut some of this and save it for later. But right now I just want to use this part of the track and I'll just extend it over to get that one last beat. And here's a good place to sort of cut everything out. So what I'll do is take our big drum hit that we brought in earlier. Now I want to mix it right in here. So if I line it up with that drum hit, it kind of creates sort of a harder sounding hit. And let me go ahead and bring these levels down. And that way it just gives it a little bit more impact. So what I can then do, I'll go ahead and cut the layer there. And then I'll listen to our epic track. And I'll go ahead and cut these tracks all down. And we'll delete them. And I want to move this whole set over. So I'll just hold down Shift, drag them over. And I want these to all start at the same time. So probably right in here. So we want to pause. Okay, and when the music starts in, that's when I want this atmosphere to fade out. So you can see here's the first beat of that song. And now this has been cut out. So now we can go into this other stuff. Now we have this track down here. Kind of this cool build. Now we can use it, say we cut it, move it over, and then fade it in. And we can use it to build the entire thing up. And so right when it gets big and starts acting up, we can then cut it. And that way we won't hear it after that point, and just fade it out. Just it's kind of a good thing to do, is fade stuff out so that it doesn't just shut off like a light switch. So as you can see, this is just a good way to get things going, mixing sound effects and, layers of stuff. Now, when we go to our massive track here, what we can do is perhaps at this second measure, I'll go ahead and hit S and slice out this measure. So you can actually see the beats. So you can see right here, that's the first beat and that's the second beat. I can delete those. And we almost get a pause just for a moment. And then everything comes back in full swing. Well, what I can do is copy this build-up, place it right in there. Now, I'm not sure exactly why you would do this, but say you needed a point where it comes back down and maybe you have some dialogue and then it builds back up into the song. This would allow you to do that. And then we could take this hard bass hit and mix it at that first measure right there. So we drag it over and line it up. And then, and you hear that double drum, that means it's not quite lined up. So just play around with it until you get it to sound correct. Now, once you sort of create all the different ups and downs that you want to create, then you can have this big build up at the end and in your track. So the key here is to figure out what you want. Remember, you want to be able to move the audience around from high points to low points, and then have just this big climax at the end. And, this is for doing sort of a promo score. Say you're doing, television suspense or things like that. You can use more methodical, more atmospheric things, and we'll be covering that in a later tutorial. So anyway, I'm Andrew Kramer, and I will see you next time.